Stranded on the tarmac at some of the world's busiest airports as it spread over Britain and towards continental Europe. 5,000 to 6,000 of the 28...
Men, they're in my hotel. They are going to kill me.
Hello, hiya Scott. Delighted to be chatting with you. I've joined here with Steve Evans.
Hi Scott, good to meet you.
Nice. You too. Yeah. I like your I like the Liver Bird backdrop there.
Of course, yeah. Keep forgetting that's there. Yeah, just default.
A bit homesick.
Yeah, of course. You're in London, aren't you? Living in London.
Been here most of my life now. Yeah.
Yeah. Since we're talking about that, do you find that's the best place to be for your work? Do you find if you were in Liverpool, you'd not so much struggle for work, but it's easier for work access? Considering you've got Southend now as well, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. When I first moved here, yes. Now, no, because everything's just self-taped. You know, you just put your auditions on tape these days. Usually all the auditions were here. So when I was a young actor, I'd find myself, sometimes I'd be on the train down from Liverpool 2-3 times a week, and it was costing so much money. And I just thought I might as well live there. But now you can be anywhere. So I know a few actors that are just moved to the country. Some of them have moved abroad. I've got a friend who lives in the middle of France. You know, it doesn't really matter anymore. But yeah, I mean, I've been down here for nearly 30 years. So
wow.
Yeah.
Proper Southerner now then, Scott.
Yeah, I've still got the yeah, my accent's been a bit diluted. I'll probably put it on a bit for you guys today.
Oh, nice one.
I was going to say, it's definitely still there. I mean, I remember years ago when I lived down in Reading, Berkshire way, and when I used to come back up north, everyone used to say, "Oh, you've got this southern twang to your accent now." And all that, you know?
Well, I find that, to be honest, a lot of actors do this. Wherever I am, my voice will adapt to where I am. So, like, I lived in New York for a short while, and when I was there, I'd be talking like that, you know. Can you take me down to 7th Avenue? And when I'm in Liverpool, you know, if I'm in a, you know, I'll go like that if I need to. Do you know what I mean? Because...
So, Mr. Donovan, what brings you to Venice? Mr. Donovan is an art authenticator for the insurance company. He is to check our Bellinis and La Tempesta.
Quite a responsibility, being an authenticator. I mean, having to decide what's priceless and what's worthless.
I just examine.
Do you paint?
Yeah, I've painted for years.
But judging is easier, isn't it?
It pays the bills. Besides, I'm not judging the work, I'm just confirming it is what it's supposed to be.
Is that hard to do?
It can be.
Aren't we late?
As always, you're right, my dear. She's going to help restore a friend's painting. Nice to see you, Donovan.
That's good today.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And if I'm talking to, you know, real Londoners, I tend to go a little bit more, it's just the chameleon in me. I think a lot of actors are like that, to be honest. I know people I mean, you know, people like Tom Hardy, sometimes they change their accents right in the middle of an interview, you know, you don't quite know, you know.
I watched in that film The Revenant, and I didn't realise it was Tom Hardy. I thought it was Christian Bale. I didn't understand the word he said in the film. Oh, great actor.
He was great when he
superb. Yeah,
no, great. I've worked with Tom, and he's one of those actors. One of the hardest things as an actor for me is finding the voice. So you can find the character, you know what he's all about, you know what you're trying to achieve, but finding the voice, because as soon as you've put it in the can, it's there. There's no going back. You know, do I do a Liverpool voice? Do I do a London voice? And Tom takes massive risks, you know, and, you know, if you think of like Bale in Batman, you know, he decided to do Bale like this. And then most actors would just be laughed at, you know, but he took a massive risk and it pays off. And he's fantastic. And I think the best actors take risks. They're not afraid to make a fool of themselves. especially when it comes to accents and voices.
Television, plays, major films. You're also a playwright, a director and producer, and now novelist. That's a lot of hats that you're wearing.
Aspiring novelist, yeah. I've written 3 novels. Yeah, well, I started out as a playwright. When I was in Liverpool, I wanted to be an actor. But back then in Liverpool, there was nothing. There was the Everyman Youth Theatre, the Playhouse Youth Theatre, that was it. There was no LIPA, there was no LMA, there was no... so opportunities were hard. I remember walking into the Everyman Youth Theatre and just seeing loads of kids jumping up and down on mattresses. And I thought, that's not for me. I want to be, Marlon Brando. I was really serious about it. Yeah. So I joined the Playhouse Youth Theatre because I thought that was a little bit more, what's refined, should we say. Yeah. And it was while I was there, I was 16, 17. I became friends with a Liverpool writer called Sean Duggan. I don't know if you know him, but he's a really great playwright. Yeah. And I saw this kid. He was only 2 years older than me, Sean. He was 18. He'd won this award at the Royal Court in London. He was writing plays. He was writing bits of TV. And he bought a house in Everton by the time he was 18. And I thought, wow, okay, there's something in that. Yeah. And then I also met the great Liverpool writer, Jeff Young, who was one of my favorite playwrights, very different style of playwright. He was the resident writer at the Everyman at the time. Yeah. And they inspired me. The 2 of them inspired me, I would say. And so when I was at the Liverpool Playhouse, I just said to the organisers, I want to write a play. And they commissioned it under a youth arts project, so brilliant. So they paid me to write a play and produce a play and direct the play, and it was called Growing Young. Yeah. And I was 17 when I wrote it. And according to this book, An Actor's Place, the Liverpool Rep Company at the Liverpool Playhouse by Pelham McMahon, I'm the youngest writer to have ever been produced in the Liverpool Playhouse in its 112-year history. So
that's brilliant.
Impressive.
So then what happened was all the playwriting doors opened. I got a literary agent because all the reviews were really good. And then I was encouraged to write plays. This agent, Alan Brody, took me on and was kind of like my, I was his protege, and I wrote a flurry of plays. I wrote 6 or 7 plays before I was 21. Yeah. And I formed a theatre company called The Herd of Brutes. And what I would do is I would just, because I didn't go to drama school, so I would just hire venues, small venues, the Liverpool Playhouse, the Neptune, the Unity, and I would produce and stage my own plays. And I would encourage any young actor writer to do that now. That was my apprenticeship. That was so yeah, I started as a playwright, but the irony is that I only wrote that play because I wanted to act in it. The best way to get roles was to create roles for yourself, and still is to some degree. A lot of actors still do that,
You give yourself the most lines in the play, your character.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah.
How did you, you were so young, 16, 17.
Yeah.
And you must have an old head on your shoulders. How did you cope with all that success, if you like, at an early age? Did you find it overwhelmed you, or did you just take it on board and go with it?
No, you don't. When you're that age, you don't think like that, do you? It's just...
Yeah, good point.
It's when you fall in love with anything, whether it be your partner, anything you fall in love with, the first few months are the most fierce, aren't they? That's when the sex is great. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's the same with your career. And when I just fell in love with it so much that I was just prolific. And, I would say even to this day, those first couple of years, because I wasn't earning any money, it was just beer money. You just make enough money to buy a pint with your actors. But they were the most creatively rewarding. They even more so than now. you know, because you're young, you're learning. What I loved was that I wasn't very well read back then, and I was being compared to lots of writers. You know, oh, this is like Strindberg, this is like Ibsen, this is like Fado, this is like so. And so I thought, if I'm being compared to all these really incredible playwrights, and I've not read them, so I've not been influenced by them, then I must be doing something right. You know, you've just got to try and find your own style. But I remember I used to do this thing where as soon as the curtain went down, I'd go into the gents' toilets and I'd lock myself in a cubicle just so I could hear what the patrons were saying at the urinals. You know, like, what did you think of that play? Think of this bit? What did you? Oh, that bit was funny. That bit was a bit crap. That was a bit, you know, and that's how you would.
That's your critic.
Yeah, and then compare that to 10 years later when I'm on the West End. And I'm taking my bow, and all I'm thinking is, got to get that last tube, got to get that last tube. You know, the love had gone.
Scott, growing up in Liverpool, I saw a picture that you posted on Twitter, yourself as a child in Naylorfield, and it's the same pic that was taken by Jimmy McGovern, brilliant Liverpool playwright. Have you crossed paths with Jimmy McGovern? I know it was Hillsborough, going back to the Hillsborough documentary or mockumentary.
He must have been some inspiration.
Yeah. He when I say cross paths, I mean, I know him and we worked together on Hillsborough, and I used to see him every year at the Hillsborough memorials. And what Jimmy did for me, I mean, I was aware of Jimmy in the early Brookside years, when Brookside was good, you know, when the writing was great, and that's when I first became aware of him. And I just thought, whenever one of Jimmy's episodes come on, you'd know it was a Jimmy episode before you saw the credits, because he's got such a distinctive style. He's one of these guys who must have spent his whole life just sat in pubs listening, you know, and writing on the back of beer mats, and just absorbing human nature, especially working class Northern Scouse voices. But over time, well, he always has been, I suppose, but progressively more so as he got older, he just became the voice of the unheard. He became like an activist, political activist through his writing. So, I mean, if it wasn't for the Hillsborough documentary, there would never have been this. That was the start of the wheels of justice turning. It took 25, 26 years, but without Jimmy McGovern, that just would have vanished from people's consciousness. And he's done it with lots of other stuff, with the Dockers, you know, and more recently with the prison system. And the thing about Jimmy is, if you're an actor and you've worked with his text, then you've just been blessed. It's just hard to describe. But he's an inspiration in the sense that he's not an inspiration to the way I write, but he's an inspiration to my acting, because when I did Hillsborough, the one thing I took away from it was the power of television and what TV is, if not for, what it could at least be used for. You know, it's a box that sits in the corner of everybody's living room. And, you know, so after doing Hillsborough, fiction became less important to me. The idea of doing an episode of Heartbeat, I just wasn't interested. You know, I wanted to do these dramas that had a social message, you know, whether it be equality or social justice, or, you know. So I think these days in my career now, it's not a coincidence that most of the things I do tend to have a political angle, you know, just a voice for people who don't have a voice.
Yeah. I mean, and you've worked with some wonderful people, the likes of Liam Neeson, Stephen Graham, who's one of our own, you know. What was it like, I mean, you know, to work with those people? I mean, were they also an inspiration to you? Did you find that? Or
I kind of put them into two categories. I've worked with really iconic actors. So I've worked with people like Malcolm McDowell, from A Clockwork Orange, Rutger Hauer from Blade Runner, and people like Isabella Rossellini, Debbie Harry, iconic names, Monica Bellucci, Ornella Muti, and these people who were already very, very famous and iconic, Liam Neeson. And they're incredible. And then I've worked with people who, after working with me, went on to become superstars. So Stephen Graham, Tom Holland, Felicity Jones, Ian Hart, Jennifer Ely. I worked on a lot of their early projects. I kind of consider myself like a good luck charm. If you work with me, you go on.
Fair enough. Yeah, why not? Yeah.
I watched the Crew film last night.
So I've worked with people before they were famous and went on to become famous, and I've worked with people who are very famous, and that's a very different dynamic, But people I always find the most successful actors, the more successful an actor is, usually, it's a generalization, but usually the nicer the person they are. There's a reason they're successful. There's a reason they work a lot. There's a reason people keep asking them back, and it's because they're nice people. They don't have egos. Divas, the divas tend to just die away. So I mean, Liam Neeson was just the most wonderful person. I mean, I only worked with him about a year ago. It's his birthday today, by the way. He's 70 today. Happy birthday, Liam.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I remember. I worked with him. The first day I worked with him was May 11th last year, and it was the anniversary of my dad's death. He died 1 year the year before. And I went up to Liam and I just said, you are my dad's favorite actor, and we're working together today on the anniversary of his death. So I think he sent me this gig. And he just listened and he quietly nodded. And then the next day he come up to me and he pulled me aside and he said, I went to church last night and I lit a candle for your dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I just,
he listened, he took on board what you said. That's
just touched me, it just really touched me. I thought, wow. Yeah. Cool guy.
Yeah. You've been in some major television series, haven't you? I'm looking back at one. There's a character you played in 2007 in the Lilies television series with Father Melia. I feel as though we're related that way.
Yeah. Where about in Liverpool are you from, Terry?
Originally from Chilwell, living in West Derby now. Yeah.
Okay. I lived in Chilwell, Abbeystead Road.
Oh yeah. My mother-in-law lives around that area. But when we first got married, we were living in Belvale and Netherley area.
That's where I grew up.
Naylesfield.
I lived in Naylesfield till I was 8. Yeah. So I was born in 72. We lived there right at the edge of the subway. So, on the border of the Netherley flats until I was 8. And then we moved to Wavertree by the Blue Coat School.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was there until I was 16. And then my folks moved to Chilwell to Abbeystead Road. And then when I moved out and bought my first house, that was in Mossley Hill by Dovedale Road. And then I moved to London when I did Backbeat, my first job. So I was only 21. That was an extraordinary drama. And I remember it being, when it was cancelled after one season, there was an uproar. It was on the front page of the Liverpool Echo, I remember. People were up in arms because it was such a good show, and some people got wind of the fact that it had been cancelled because it was too working class. That was the leaks coming out of the BBC, and people were like, "How dare they?" And of course, Hardy then went on to write "Call the Midwife," which is ran for 12, 13 years, and it's But I remember her drama. It was, for those who don't know, it was about 3 Liverpool girls in the Garston area at the turn of the century in the year 1900. Well, no, it was set in around 1911, but they would have been born in about 1900, which was the same time my grandmother, Joanna, was born. And basically, they're living in a motherless house with their father, who's a strict disciplinarian, and just their life, just watching their life, how they deal just before the breakout of the First World War. And I played the local parish priest, Father Melia, And it was a bit of a Thorburn. What was that show called?
The Thornbirds.
I think they were trying to create like this priest that, although he was sexless and devoted to God, he happened to look good and was attracted to women, and one of the daughters falls in love with him, and it was a wonderful idea. And yeah, I mean, that had so much potential. It was going to run and run. I think it was, it could have gone through the whole of the First World War into the Second World War. But yeah, it stopped, and which is a great shame. What can I say? Happens, you get in these shows.
Yeah.
I remember Liverpool 1. That was a great series, Liverpool crime series set in the Vice Squad, and it was me and Mark Womack, Samantha Jackson.
Yeah.
Stephen Graham was in it, and great cast, and it ran for 2 seasons and then it stopped. And
Another series. Go on, sorry, Scott.
I played a heroin addict with a wooden leg. used to stash all my drugs in my artificial limb, and I was an informant for the Liverpool Vice Squad. Yeah, it was a great show. It was a really great idea. It was you basically, Mark Womack played a detective in the Vice Squad, and he was related to the head of the Liverpool underworld, the mafioso John Sullivan, played by Paul Usher. Yeah, and then the idea of the head, one of the top cops, being related to this crime family, and it was a really good idea. And my character was, so they were all very wealthy. Their father had made millions through bookmaking, so they were all very wealthy, and so you just saw the dynamic of the brothers. And I was the wayward brother who fell into drugs and then got his leg shot off in season 1. Yeah,
great program though. Great program.
They should bring it back. They should bring it back.
Shouldn't they?
Sounds great.
Me, Mark, Samantha, Stephen Graham, Stephen Walters, all the great actors that were in it. Bring us all back. We're all still alive.
Paul Usher as well. They're all still there. Yeah, great actors. Paul actresses.
Paul Usher's my best friend. Paul Usher's.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's my son's godfather.
Oh, nice one. Yeah. You, I mean, I'm a big fan of Corrie as well. So obviously, you know what I'm going to talk about now. You played that character, Aaron Faraday, in Corrie, didn't you? And that was looking after Shona as a support worker, weren't you, if I remember rightly?
Yeah, it was a strange one because what happened was the pandemic came and the first lockdown came and my industry just stopped. No theatre, no film, no TV. The only things that kept going were the soaps. And so I had this opportunity to go into Coronation Street. And it was going to be, I think it was going to be for 3-4 months. And it was the 60th anniversary year. And there's a few actors in Coronation Street that I really admired that I've worked with in the past. And I jumped at it. I thought, I'm doing this. And I went in. And unfortunately, even the soaps closed down eventually. They just couldn't. I think they stopped for maybe 2-3 months. They just had enough episodes filmed to keep going. Yeah. They stopped. They went to 1 episode a week. And then what it meant was they had to be very selective with the actors they used because of social distancing. So you had episodes where there was just 3 or 4 actors. And of course, it was a last in, first out situation. So the character wasn't taken to where he was supposed to go, and I stopped doing it. But I really admire actors who work in soap. I found it a real experience. I'd never worked with 3 cameras before. I'd never worked, well, tell a lie, I did, but very early in my career on Spring Hill. But moving walls, sets, it's a very different style of acting. It's a very different dynamic, different medium. It's a lot like theatre. You don't know because the cameras are just in the dark somewhere in the studio. And you can't really see what they're doing. So you just act and just assume that the cameras are finding you and picking you up. So you're not conscious of each take, you know, conscious of matching takes, of, you know, being more still in a close-up. It's a very different style of acting, and it takes a bit of getting used to. But, you know, some of these actors have really intense, heavy, emotional scenes to do, and they get 0 rehearsal and 1 take, and then 10 million people watch it. You know, that's a lot of pressure. It's, you know, they earn their dough. So, yeah, I mean, they did come back and check my availability at one point, but unfortunately I wasn't available. I was busy. So you never know. Maybe the character might come back someday.
Yeah, I was half expecting it to. Yeah, I was half expecting a few more episodes, perhaps. But yeah.
I thought I was gonna go in and just become like this kind of Coronation Street Lothario and start seduce, seduce Gail and stuff.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing I was expecting, to be honest. But it never happened, did it? Yeah. Of course.
Scott, you're currently filming the new Sky drama, Unwanted. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, man. It's the greatest thing apart from Hillsborough. It's probably the most important drama I've ever done, most powerful drama I've ever done. So basically, essentially, there's an Italian investigative journalist called Gatti, and years ago he went undercover as an African refugee, and he went through the Western Sahara slave routes from the west of Africa right through to Libya, and documented everything he experienced. And the things he experienced were harrowing. So, you know, the trafficking, the torture, the rape, it's just dreadful. And he documented it all. And then he managed to get on a boat and get to Italy and start life in Italy. And so what happened was, the writer of Gomorrah, which is an incredible, I don't know if you know Gomorrah, it's an incredible Italian kind of crime series. It's like the Italian Sopranos.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was written by a guy called Stefano Bises, and he took this book and dramatized it into an 8-part drama, and it's called Unwanted. So that's what it is. It's essentially a lot of African migrants. They're on this boat trying to get to Italy, and as what often happens with these boats, they're not seaworthy. They're sold a dud, and it starts to sink and it catches fire. And my character, I play the head of security on this huge cruise liner called the Orizzonte, which is, we used Richard Branson's brand new cruise liner, which is called the Valiant Lady, 16 stories high, 20 restaurants, casinos, these incredible machines that float around the globe. And we rescue these migrants, and then it kind of becomes a political drama about, you know, the reason it's called Unwanted is because we just go into the politics of it, and who is willing to take in these asylum seekers. And throughout these episodes, we flash back to their individual stories of each of the migrants, what they had to go through. And again, it's what I was talking about earlier with the Jimmy McGovern thing. It's very topical. It's very political. It's about, you know, the situation we have now with
Rwanda.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's going to be. It's directed by Oliver Hirschbeigel, who's an Oscar-nominated director. He's a German director. He directed Downfall, which is that incredible movie about the last days of Hitler. You know, the one that's used in all of the memes.
Cartoons, yeah. But whatever political figures you don't like. He
directed that. So yeah, they're still filming. They're doing the African section of the shoot. They're in Senegal as we speak. So that will be out in 2023.
I'm really looking forward to it. Scott, we're at our time running out. Maybe a couple of final questions.
Sure.
Yeah, I've got a good one for you. I think I know the answer to
Yeah,
this.
I do.
I was going to ask beforehand, are you a red or a blue? But I think I know the answer to that.
I'm a red.
Yeah,
Very briefly.
Yep.
My dad and my dad's family are from Everton. They were born right next to Goodison Park. And but my dad wasn't into football. He was a big boxer. He was into his boxing. If my dad had been into football, I would have been a blue. But the first person who took me to Anfield was a friend of the family. When I was 11 years old, I went to 1983. I went to Anfield for the first time. And we won 6-1. It was against Luton Town. And that was a baptism of fire. You know, Rush scored 5, Dagley scored 1. And that was it. I was hooked. And
Brilliant.
I've loved them ever since. It's, you know, that's it. I'm a disciple.
Do you get back to Liverpool often at all, Scott?
I did, not recently because I've been in Rome for 6 months. But yeah, I do. I mean, I've got my sisters, my brother live there, my in-laws, my wife's family. Sadly, my parents are no longer with us. But yeah, I do. I get up often. I'll be up there the end of this month, going to a big party in the Liver building.
Oh, brilliant.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent stuff.
Yeah. Scott, I'd say the time's caught up, but it's been an absolute delight chatting with you. I really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you very much.
It's been fantastic, really interesting. Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah.
Thanks.
So let's keep in touch, and I'm really looking forward to watching Unwanted.
So am I.
Look at
yeah.
It's going to be good.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers then, Scott.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.